Hello, welcome. Very, very somber mood today on the DualShock Graveyard Podcast, I must say. We're mourning a legend. Mr. Eddie Van Halen passed away last week, and I gotta be honest, man. I was never too big on Van Halen. I was always more of a Motley Crue slash Bon Jovi type of guy, but you still gotta give, credit where credit's due. He was definitely up there as far as the shredders of that time, and it is quite sad. Sad enough to dedicate a cold open to the man, which is what this is. So, rest in peace, Eddie Van Halen. Thank you for the music. Thank you for everything. Wait, here's the thing, right? Some people are heartless, right? When it comes to celebrity deaths like this, you'll hear some people going like, "Oh, celebrity, what the fuck do I care, man? They had no impact in my life." And to an extent, I get it, but I mean, I tend to be a little a little more compassionate as far as, because here's the thing, celebrities, they have families too, and my thoughts go out to the family of Eddie Van Halen, but at the same time, listen, I'm sure Eddie Van Halen had a bitchin' life. Fame, fortune, as cliche rock star success story as you can get. And at the end of it all, he ended it in a much more comfortable way than you and I are ever gonna experience. Mansion surrounded by his loved ones. It is what it is, and that's all I have to say about that. Rest in peace, Mr. Eddie Van Halen. Thank you for the music. He did not pass away from COVID, despite the rumors. He actually had throat cancer. He had it for the past 5 years, and question, do you get cancer the same way everywhere in your body? Like, if you have throat cancer, do you get it differently from how you would get, like, say, lung cancer or prostate cancer? Like, is there specific ways to get one directly in one spot? Lung cancer, that's always associated with smoking cigarettes. Throat cancer, though, I mean, you can make the obvious jokes about throat cancer. In fact, listen, what do you want me to say? It was the 80s. Prime vintage Van Halen. This man was probably surrounded by groupies, and this was back in the 80s. None of them shaved. So who's to say maybe he got a couple pubes in his throat? Maybe one of those pubes had crabs. It died in his throat, decomposed in his throat, and it grew to be a cancer 30 years later. And listen, am I being insensitive? Perhaps, but you're telling me that's not a possibility? The bottom line is rest in peace, Eddie Van Halen. That's what all of this boils down to, is much love and respect to you, sir. Eddie Van Halen, rest in peace. And with all that being said, let me go ahead and properly introduce all of you to the DualShock Graveyard Podcast. I am Julian. I am your host, and this is episode... Holy shit, this is episode 10. Oh my goodness. It only took us 2 years, but finally we hit episode 10. 2 years. For those that are listening to this show for the first time, I don't want to explain it too much. I don't want to sound like a broken record bringing this up all the time, but 2 years ago, started the show. We did 8 episodes, and some shenanigans happened in life, and I took a 2-year break. What are you gonna do? But that break is over, and last week was the big triumphant resurrection, and now here we are finally after 2 years at episode 10. Very, very special episode. I feel like I say that every episode. I said last week's episode was special because obviously it was a big triumphant comeback, and now this is another in fact, no, every episode is special, of course. And do you know why? It's very simple. It's because you're here. You. Not that other person. You are here. And you make every single episode special by being here. In fact, you mean so much to this show that I want you to be a part of this show. And that's what the show's all about. The DualShock Graveyard Podcast, as I say every week, is a gaming podcast with a horror twist, with a big fat emphasis on our listener input. And just as I said last week, if you somehow stumbled upon this show, that is awesome. Thank you. And being that this is finally episode 10, how's about this week we do a special $10 PSN giveaway, which I tried really hard to make it sound like that was an unexpected surprise, but no, that was something I had planned this whole time. So, haha. Although I'm not gonna say when, and I'm not gonna say how, because to be honest, even I don't know in what format this sweepstakes, we'll call it, will happen. It'll most likely be a question, and I will ask a question, a little quiz, and the first person to hit me up on the DMs on either my Twitter or Instagram, the two current official hubs of the podcast, will get this PSN, $10 in PSN credits. So keep your ears open, motherfuckers. And by the way, ambient_Jules is that's my Twitter and Instagram. As I said last week, I'm not gonna do the official Twitter of no, it's just my personal pages. As I said before, if you're listening to this show, you are now my friend. And what do friends do? We hit each other up on social media. That's what we do. So for that reason alone, or for the more important, the fact that you want these $10 in PSN credits, either way, I can't even be mad. Do that. Once again, ambient_Jules. By the way, big shout outs to the 6 people that added me on Twitter after last week's triumphant return. I appreciate that. Thank you. Damn, I should have had your names written down. I would have loved to just shout you guys out individually. In fact, shit, here's an idea. Every single new follower I get for the next 5 episodes on Twitter and Instagram will get a shout out right here on the DualShock Graveyard Podcast. Bam. There's your incentive right there. Don't want to be my friend? Fine. You don't want the $10 in PSN credits? Sure. How about being immortalized in a podcast that is still on the up and up? But whatever, man. When have you ever heard your username spoken on a podcast before? Exactly. Never. I really did just go on a major tangent right there that distracted me from the weekly releases. So let's get back to it. The weekly releases, self-explanatory. I don't go over every single game that comes out every single week, because if I did, it would be a long, convoluted segment, which is not what I want. But rather, I go for the big games, the heavy hitters, the ones that I'm interested in, and the ones that I think you'd be interested in. And this is for the week of October 12th to the 16th. On the 13th, we've got, and it's funny because I just said I'm not talking about any filler or shovelware, but the first game we have here is on the 13th, we've got G.I. Joe Ops Blackout. Sorry, G.I. Joe Operation Blackout, which, off the cuff, a G.I. Joe game, really. But listen, I do a little bit of research of every game that I plan on presenting in this segment, and this actually looks like a legit third-person shooter, quality third-person shooter game. And I was a little blown away. This any G.I. Joe fans out there, you might want to give this one a look. Take a look at a gameplay trailer out there, because this actually looks pretty quality. That's G.I. Joe Operation Blackout. On the same day, we also have a Remothered Broken Porcelain, which is from what I've seen, it's a point and click type of horror game. It's pretty polished as well. It's apparently I've never heard of it, but apparently Remothered is an established IP, an IP of point and click / survival horror type game. If that's up your alley, do some research on Remothered Broken Porcelain, because it looks like a good time if that's your thing. On the 15th, Thursday, we've got Age of Empires 3 Definitive Edition. Again, from the research I've done, this is apparently one of the greatest real-time strategy games ever made from 2005. And now it's back in the form of a remaster in the form of Age of Empires Definitive Edition out the 15th. And on the same day, we have a game called Cloudpunk. Now, Cloudpunk is It's a game in the style of Cyberpunk, though it's nowhere near as polished. Although it has a neat little aesthetic. It's a driving game slash. Remember the classic Grand Theft Autos? Not I'm talking about even before 3. For those that don't know, Grand Theft Auto used to be like a top-down open world game where like you'd see it from the top and you would control it. It's like that, but it's like obviously much more polished. If that sounds up to your liking, definitely check out some gameplay footage of that. Always look at some gameplay footage before you make a purchase. If you hear something that is up your alley from what I've said, there's no possible way I can be that descriptive that I can just make you want to purchase a game based off my very amazing accurate descriptions. So it's definitely, do a little bit of research if a title catches your eye. Moving on the 16th, which is Friday. This Friday we've got NHL 21. NHL 21, hockey game. Not really much to say there. If you're a hockey fan, this is your game right here. So that comes out Friday. And lastly, same day on the 16th, we've got a wild card here. We've got Mario Kart Home Circuit. For those that don't know, this is not the next Mario Kart game. This is something different. This is it's hardware. It's like a cart that you buy. Oh god, this is gonna suck. This is a cart that you buy. It's like a little motorized cart, except you control it with your Nintendo Switch. Although you can create tracks in your own home that you race around these little carts in, and someone else can buy their own cart, and you can do your own little races in your home, which sounds pretty amazing, honestly. That's definitely the backlog for me when I do buy a Switch finally. But definitely check it out. That's one you should definitely check out on YouTube, because my description does not do it justice. It looks quite amazing. Nintendo always do very creative things with their peripherals and their hardware. Nintendo Labo comes to mind, which if you remember, that was literal pieces of cardboard that Nintendo would sell you that you would fold into shapes like, little guns, little robo mechs, little cardboard robo mechs that you would use in various Switch games. Now we have an actual little toy car that you race around your home with. That is Mario Kart Home Circuit. Check that out. And that is it for the weekly releases. Once again, your input on this show matters. What's the old saying? One man's shovelware is another man's treasure. Meaning, if I ever do miss a game that you and many of you believe should be included in the weekly releases, please let me know on the socials, and I will happily include them in their own little segment in the next show. And moving right along, I want to talk about what I've been watching and what I've been playing this week. I've been doing quite a bit of both. As a matter of fact, just last night I was playing a Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, a game that is so good, but I was reminded why I stopped playing. I am stuck on this goddamn boss that has been pissing me off. And it's one of those bosses where it's not hopeless. Like, I get close every single time. That's always that spot where it's like you get so close every time, and it's so frustrating every time you die because you're just right there. In fact, if I would have stuck it out just a tad longer, I think I might have crushed this fucker. And I'll get back to that very soon. But Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, if you have Xbox Game Pass, it is on there. That is a must download. Definitely add that to your collection. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. Also, very exciting. I've never been a fan of like battle royale games like Fortnite, PUBG, any of those. It's just not my thing. However, I did download this new one called Spellbreak, which is it's in the same vein. It doesn't completely change up the formula, but it is magic based. So instead of guns, you're shooting lightning out of your fingers onto your opponents and fire. You choose you choose an elemental, and that's your primary, and then you go out into the world and you can upgrade that elemental, upgrade your armor. Dude, the basic battle royale shtick. But finally, I got my first ever battle royale win in anything. So that felt quite rewarding, and I would never recommend a battle royale game because again, that's not really my cup of tea. But it's free to play. If you wanted to try out a new one that's slightly different than the ones you've been playing, definitely check out Spellbreak. That's available, as far as I know. That should be available everywhere. Genshin Impact. You know we were going to talk about this one. This game has been everywhere. It's been at the top of the Twitch charts. It's been, as far as I know, currently the #1 most downloaded game on the PSN right now. For good reason. It's a charming little, most commonly described as a Zelda Breath of the Wild with waifus. Come on. You know I've just piqued your curiosity. Come on. Breath of the Wild with waifus? Come on. And here's the thing. You hear free to play, for the most part you think, maybe a MOBA or, again, a Battle Royale game. But no, this is actually a legit, full-blown Breath of the Wild type game that I'm shocked is free to play. In fact, I've downloaded it on mobile first, which is something I never do. But it is available on PC, Switch, PS4, and... again, mobile. That's Genshin Impact. I'm blown away at how much content you get for free because most mobile games, as soon as they get the opportunity to, they try to nickel and dime you for, for everything. But I've gotten hours into this game and haven't felt the need to drop any type of coin at all, which is quite good for this type of game at least. I went from playing it on mobile and then switched it on over to the PS4, and my God, the obvious difference. It's such a pretty game too. I'm a sucker for games with like very gorgeous color palettes. So, and the way Breath of the Wild captivated you the first time you played it is the way that I felt playing this game. So, if a free-to-play version of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild with cute anime girls is something you think you'd be into, definitely check out Genshin Impact. This game, it also did its job in making me excited for another game that's also in the Breath of the Wild style. It's the Ubisoft game, formerly known as Gods and Monsters. It's now called Immortals Fenyx Rising. It just got me even more excited for that because Breath of the Wild, it really did, I just hit my mic there. It really did not reinvent, but it invented its own style that is ripe for the picking as far as other games. It's going to create other copycats, as they call them, although I think, I don't find an issue with games finding inspiration from other games, but Immortals Fenyx Rising is basically Breath of the Wild set in Greek mythology, which I love Greek mythology, so that game has my name written all over it, and that comes out in December, so that's one I'll be waiting for, and playing Genshin Impact has just reignited my hype for that game, so Genshin Impact, also free to play. Now, as far as what I've been watching, I reactivated my Netflix account. There it is. I reactivated my Netflix account. And one film I've been meaning to check out is one called The Devil All the Time, and that stars it's basically got every British actor doing Southern accents. It's got Tom Holland, it's got Robert Pattinson, and big shocker, you know who's in this film? Remember Dudley from Harry Potter? They've got Dudley from Harry Potter in this one. And not only is he no longer pudgy like he was in the Harry Potter movies, he's fit, he's grown, and who would have thought, gives a fantastic performance in this movie. I don't want to give the plot away or anything, but he plays a priest who loses his mind, and that's all I'll say about his role. But he puts on a fucking powerhouse performance, man. Of all people, Dudley from Harry Potter, and it's also got again Robert Pattinson. Which, listen, between Good Time, The Lighthouse, and this, I'm very comfortable in saying that Robert Pattinson has skyrocketed to my top 3. of today. Not of all time, but as far as actors working like right now, like current actors, for sure, Robert Pattinson is up there. He's he's never had to redeem himself from Twilight. But for the people that thought that he did because they just didn't like Twilight, which again I was never a fan, it just wasn't for me. But he's absolutely redeemed. Are you kidding me? He's absolutely redeemed himself from the Twilight movies and has made me very, very excited for the Batman. I think he's gonna kill it. I really think that he's gonna kill it as Bruce Wayne. And as far as the film itself goes, The Devil All the Time, it's nowhere near a bad movie. But the performances are the highlight of the movie. The plot, it's one of those films where it's like a generational piece where you see the main character's father, he's a kid and he just grows up, and it's kind of there's like three different plot lines that you see how they kind of weave together at the end. It's one of those types of films, but the performances are the highlights here, and they are stacked. Again, Robert Pattinson puts on a powerhouse performance. Tom Holland as well. He's in this film. He's actually the main character, so of course he must be mentioned. He's obviously not in my top three, nowhere near it, but he's an exceptional actor. I really like Tom Holland, and he's great in this film too. I think it's worth watching once because it's an interesting enough plot to see how everything weaves together. Some scenes are very, very disturbing. Again, fucking Dudley, man. And I was watching on the couch, right? And he gives an amazing monologue. And while this amazing performance is happening, in the back of my mind, I'm like, who is this? Why does this guy look so familiar? And I actually had to pause the movie and look it up. And when I did, and I found out that it was fucking Dudley. I mean, that in itself was a plot twist. And it made the movie quite enjoyable, but he's definitely got the more disturbing scenes in that film, so he didn't stray too far from his roots as Harry Potter's shithead cousin. So definitely worth at least one watch. That's The Devil All the Time on Netflix. Give that movie a watch and give some love to our Lord and Savior Robert Pattinson, man. He's on a tear. He is absolutely on a tear. Which, listen, good for him. He has outshone Twilight, and let's be honest, he has outshone that cheating whore, Kristen Stewart. I mean, it is what it is. What is she doing nowadays? She's bald-headed underwater looking like Slim Shady, while Robert Pattinson he's Batman. I mean, good for him. Good for Robert Pattinson, man. Top 3. As the cool kids say on Twitter, we stan Robert Pattinson here on the DualShock Graveyard Podcast. Oh my God, Jesus. I will never use that word ever again. Oh, that tasted bad coming out of my mouth. Ugh. Anyway, moving on. Here's something that will make many people jealous. In the same vein that I would be jealous if someone told me that they're watching Breaking Bad for the first time. I'm watching Friends for the first time, like legit sitting down and watching Friends from beginning to end. And I gotta tell you, this feels like a moment. I've seen multiple family members just lose themselves watching Friends, just getting into that giant rabbit hole for like a good year or so and just obsessing over the show. And I'm towards the end of season 1 and I'm loving it. I fucking love Friends. Forget Halloween. This is no longer the season of the witch. This is now the season of Friends. And I couldn't be happier. I'm loving it. Loving it. And before I move on from Friends, I just want to take a little moment to give a little shout out to the person out there that got me into Friends and is currently joining me in my little binge sessions. And they know who they are. They're listening. How you doing? Anyway, Rocket League. I've also been playing lots and lots of Rocket League. That's a game that I've been playing since the beginning of the generation. That ever since they gave it out for free that month on PlayStation Plus, I've been hooked. I'm pretty sure that is the game that I have the most hours logged in ever on PlayStation, for sure. What can I say? I mean, sure, make the obvious joke. Oh, you dirty ass Mexican, of course you love soccer. And honestly, you're not too far off. Sure, I'll give you that. But as of recently, Rocket League is now free to play. In fact, here's something I just realized. Every single game that I've played and recommended, all of them have been free. Let's see. Spellbreak, free. Genshin Impact, free. Rocket League, free. Was there any others? I think that was it. All of those are free. I just gave you a whole bunch of games that I recommend that you play. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night is not free, but if you have Game Pass on Xbox, boom, free download. There you go. I'm still right. Now, let's move on to the latest and greatest going on. The latest happenings, as they call it in gaming. And starting with this one, just as I thought that there would be no more content put out for Mortal Kombat 11, in comes the news of not only a brand new combat pack, which includes 3 brand new DLC characters, but the entire collection, including set pack, will be put together in the form of Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate. Now, as far as the 3 brand new recently announced DLC characters, we've got Rain, which good inclusion right there. He's been a fan favorite that hasn't been playable since Mortal Kombat 9 back in 2011, which is funny because he was in Mortal Kombat X2, but in the story mode, and when people saw him there, they assumed that he was going to be a DLC character, but that never came to be. But finally, at the tail end of the Mortal Kombat 11 life cycle, in comes Rain. For those not familiar with Mortal Kombat lore, at the very least, I would assume that you're familiar with that, with like the ninjas have like that color palette where like Scorpion is the yellow one, Sub-Zero is the blue one, Reptile is the green one, Ermac is the red one, Tremor is the brown one. Well, Rain is the purple one, and he uses water as his main projectile. So that's Rain, and in addition to Rain, we've got Rambo, legit John Rambo. And not just Rambo included in the character, they actually got Sylvester Stallone himself to come in and voice Rambo for this game, which is pretty damn incredible. And lastly, I don't know how to feel about this next one. It's great for the people that wanted her, but I have a little rant to go along with her. We've got easily the most requested character is Melina. They put Melina in the game after all the bitching and moaning that people were doing. Ed Boon, he got so much shit for not putting Melina in the game. And here's my little rant. Here's why I'm not 100% ecstatic, okay? In fighting games, there's a little something that I like to call hard omissions. And to me, a hard omission is when a character, a big character, is not included in a particular entry for a specific reason. Simply for the reason that every single character does not have to be in every single iteration of a specific series. You know, the developer is allowed to omit certain popular characters either because that character just they don't fit in the story of this game, or just because they don't want to. And some examples of that are, let's see, even the game we're talking about, Mortal Kombat 11, Quan Chi is not in this game. He's I don't know if I would call him a fan favorite, but he's he's a major player in this game. He's a major character. He's not in this. And he's not in it because he was killed in Mortal Kombat X, the last game. Other examples, Christy Monteiro from Tekken. She was my main in Tekken 4. She's not in Tekken 7. She was a big character. In fact, she was one of the cover. She was in the opening movie for Tekken 4. She's a fan favorite, I would say. She's not in Tekken 7. That's a hard omission. Street Fighter. Does Street Fighter 5 have any hard omission? Of course it does. Being the fucking giant spick fuck dirty ass Mexican that I am, I love T-Hawk. That's my boy. He wasn't in Street Fighter 5. He was in Street Fighter 4, but he was a hard omission for Street Fighter 5, and that's my point. It sucks, but you kind of understand, like, okay, he was in the last game. Maybe they're going to save him for the next one, because when he does come out in Street Fighter 6 and T-Hawk's in, that's going to be a major, major moment for me. And that's my point. Hard omissions suck, but when they come back in the next game, that's what makes it worth it. And it just sucks that Ed Boon should have held out. He should have put out a statement, because again, he was getting harassed and just so much shit from fans that just he couldn't even tweet anymore without just a legion of Molina fans just giving him shit. He should have at the very least put out a statement saying, I admire the passion of, our fan base. However, we have no plans of putting Molina, so stop asking. Like, that would have been completely acceptable given the amount of shit that he would get, but he caved. And I mean, you can't be too upset. I mean, that is a developer that gave the fans what he wanted technically. And yeah, that does count as a good thing. Sure. But my point is that he could have held out, waited for next gen, Mortal Kombat 12. Molina could have been, she could have been the cover. She could have been on the cover of Mortal Kombat 12, and that would have been massive. But now she's in Mortal Kombat 11 as DLC. Which, congratulations to the Molina fans out there. All your bitching and moaning, you got what you want. So now you can leave Ed Boon alone. Leave that poor man alone and let him make the next Injustice or whatever the fine people over there at NetherRealm Studios are making. The second part of this rant regarding this combat pack is Rambo. I think it's cool that they're adding Rambo. I think it's interesting how in Mortal Kombat X, all the guest characters were horror icons. Like, they had a Leatherface, Jason, Alien. And in Mortal Kombat 11, it's action. It's like 80s action stars. They've got the Terminator. They've got RoboCop, Rambo. And what's cool is that Sylvester Stallone is actually voicing Rambo for this game, which is pretty incredible. Just as how whoever the guy that played RoboCop came in to play RoboCop. And it's kind of a letdown that Arnold Schwarzenegger did not come in to do the Terminator, although the guy that they replaced him, that they got to do Terminator, isn't that. He's not as bad as everyone makes him out to be. Like, you can tell that it's not Arnold, but it's also not like as... Oh, fuck, who am I kidding? It is kind of funny listening to listening to the Terminator speak. It is like a very out there impression, but what makes it even more disappointing is that it's not because Arnold doesn't... And by the way, I love Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's my idol. He is unironically my idol. I idolize Arnold Schwarzenegger. But it's not like he's unfamiliar in the realm of video game voice acting. In fact, just this year, he provided his voice in that Predator game, that very low budget shovelware ass Predator game. And it's just kind of a letdown. It's like, okay, you'll do that tiny game, but you won't do Mortal Kombat? I don't know. But, what are you gonna do? Be mad at Arnie? You can't be mad at Arnie. It's fucking Arnie. It's Arnold. But yeah, all of the above, everything I just said will come together in one package on November 17th. And by the time that comes out, both next-gen consoles will be out. And which is good because they've also announced that PS4 owners and Xbox One owners of Mortal Kombat 11 will get a free upgrade to the next-gen versions, which is awesome. And that includes 4K dynamic resolution, enhanced visuals, significantly improved load times, and cross-gen and cross-platform compatibilities, which is very, very cool. I was one of those people when cross-gen started happening, I was like, is it really necessary? I mean, it's not like PlayStation has like a shortage on people to play with. And it wasn't until I met somebody that had an Xbox and I wanted to play online with that I realized how crucial it is that cross-play is a thing, especially since how evenly matched next gen is going to be now that Microsoft is finally back on their shit and making moves. I think crossplay is definitely very crucial. And by the way, to that person that has the Xbox, again, they know who they are. They're listening. Moving on. Again, that's Mortal Kombat Ultimate, all that included, November 17th. The PlayStation Store. Now, This got me. I got duped by clickbait with this next one. I read a headline and it legit made it out to sound like the PlayStation Store will no longer sell PlayStation Portable, PlayStation 3, and PlayStation Vita games. And that was shocking to me. But again, clickbait got me, and it turns out that's not the case. In fact, what's really happening is that starting October 19th, the PlayStation Store on mobile and the PlayStation Store on the internet will no longer sell PSP, PS3 games, and PS Vita games. The only way you can buy PSP games, PS3 games, and PS Vita games digitally will only be through their platforms. Meaning, starting on the 19th, you can only buy PS3 games digitally through the PS3, and vice versa, the PSP, and again, the same as the Vita, which, I mean, I guess it sucks for the very tiny amount of people that buy, PS3 games through the PlayStation Store online or mobily, but I feel like it's such a tiny number that, I mean, it's not like they're getting rid of the capabilities to buy it indefinitely. I mean, if you're buying PS3 games through the PS Store online, you're obviously implying that you're going to plug in your PS3 to play it eventually. So when that time comes, just plug in your PS3 and buy them that way. To me, this just sounds like Sony decluttering their store, which is kind of a smart thing to do, especially with next gen around the corner. Which, by the way, as of tomorrow, the 15th, we are approximately 4 weeks away from the launch of the PlayStation 5, which blows my mind. And 2 days before that will be the release of the Xbox. So next gen's here. It's we're nearing the eve of the next gen, which is very, very exciting for those of you that will be buying next gen consoles on day one. Which again, that ain't gonna be me. No. As I said last week, I'm gonna hold off a little bit, at the very least until January, just to see how that first round of how the launch goes first. And once the dust settles a little bit, then I'll comfortably be able to jump right on in there with a purchase. Here's a funny little story going on in Japan. So here in America and everywhere else around the world that's not Japan, on the DualShock, which is the name of the controller, which is the name of the PlayStation controller, which, by the way, shoutouts, name drop of the namesake of this podcast that you're listening to, the DualShock Graveyard Podcast. Shoutouts to the one and only DualShock. The buttons on the DualShock traditionally is X would be your proceed, your go button, and the O would be the back button or cancel. That's how it's been all last gen. However, in Japan, it's always been swapped, where the X button for them is the cancel, go back button, and the O button is actually the, proceed, the go, the, that button. But starting next gen with the PS5, that's going to change for Japan. They are now going to switch those buttons so that it matches up with the rest of the world, and the Japanese are not happy about that. They're up in arms. There's outrage going on. They're mobbing the PlayStation headquarters with their katanas. That's actually that's not what's happening. But they're a little tiny bit of outrage. And here's my thing, right? They'll get over it. They'll get used to it very fast, and the reason I sound so blasé about it is because we've had to do that a couple times too here. I don't know how many of you recall, but on the PlayStation 2, do you remember the triangle button used to be the back button? Not only that, in racing games, the X button used to be the accelerate button, and the square button was the brake. We've had conventional button configurations switch defaults many times, and it's something that's not the biggest deal in the world. We've gotten used to it, and so will the Japanese. That's something that they'll get used to that fairly quickly. But it is worth mentioning, just something that's going on over there in Japan. Although I believe now is the time to segue over to some spooky shenanigans. There's a specific topic that I want to get into real quick. It's It's certainly one of my favorite phenomenons. Phenomenon being one of my all-time favorite words. It's so fun to say. Phenomenon. And look at you. Now I've got you saying it. You know you want to say it. Just go ahead, just say it. Say it. Phenomenon. And that phenomenon is horrifying scenes in movies that are not horrifying. It's such an intriguing phenomenon because horror, it proves that fear transcends its genre. As far as the genre of media, obviously not, real fear. Actual, real life fear at least. The reason why this is something that I'm so interested in is because when we sign up to watch something scary or play a video game that's very terrifying, we know what to expect. We've signed up for, the experience of being scared, of just feeling absolute gut-wrenching horror. But that type of horror, when you stumble upon it on media that's not meant to be scary, it can honestly be sometimes even more frightening because it usually just comes at you out of nowhere. Like you're watching something that's, like children's programming. Like the more innocent the piece of media is, the more terrifying whatever horrifying thing that's in it is, because it's the contrast between the genres, And I've got a couple examples of that with me written down just from my own personal experience that I want to share. I recently had the film, one of my all-time favorite films, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Oh, what a great goddamn movie that is. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It was in the background while I was I forget what I was doing, but I had it playing in the background, and the scene came on where, do you remember that scene where Willy Wonka takes he takes those little bastards, he puts them in a sailboat and they proceed to sail through a tunnel. Now the whole movie is very colorful, very cheery, very comical, but this specific scene, Wonka sails this sailboat through a tunnel, and in this tunnel, it's very dark. The color palette turns from colorful to this very dark black and red and dark green, and there's a screen that's playing a bunch of weird, fucked up imagery, and Willy Wonka himself, he's like, his eyes are bugging out. It's just a very disturbing scene. In fact, it's a scene that's so disturbing that Marilyn Manson, he actually, one of his music videos was inspired by that very scene, and it was the music video for Dope Hat, and this was Marilyn Manson in the 90s, man. This was back when people were legit scared. I was scared of Marilyn Manson. I remember being like in kindergarten, seeing him on like Ricky Lake. Again, 90s icon Ricky Lake. And people were still scared of the concept that is, the devil. This was before technology. This was before the internet really, put a new perspective on shit. This was back when people were still scared of Satan. Nowadays, nobody's scared of Satan. Nobody's scared of Satan anymore. Devil worshippers, they get laughed at now. But back in the 90s, they were certainly a force to be terrified with, for sure. And Marilyn Manson, that's music video for Dope Hat was inspired by this scene from Willy Wonka, and that was one of them. What else do I have on here? Oh, of course, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, the Large Marge scene, just out of fucking nowhere. Pee-wee hitchhikes a ride from this lady called Large Marge, and out of nowhere, her face transforms into this very disturbing animated figure just out of nowhere. And I remember that got me as a kid. Not to mention the nightmare scene. Oh my god, I'm surprised, like I'm talking about Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I'm surprised that nightmare scene from that movie didn't just scream into my notes, but I'm thinking about it right now, and Jesus Christ, I forget how he gets knocked out somewhere, and then he has a nightmare where, keep in mind, this is a children's movie, and out of nowhere, he has a nightmare where demon clown doctors start performing surgery on his missing bike, and then the bike gets transferred over to where the devil is chilling with his little demons, and he dips his bike into the fire, and the demons are doing this weird dancing jig that's just really disturbing, and it traumatized me as a kid. Legitimately traumatized me as a kid. What else? The Lord of the Rings, the scene where Frodo shows Bilbo the ring, and then Bilbo has a moment where he just fucking transforms into a monster, and then for like a quick second it was a jump scare. That was pretty great. Or how about the flying monkeys from The Wizard of Oz? Those fuckers. The most scariest part being not anything that they do, but there's a scene where the lion, everybody, I think they're trying to find Dorothy, and they stumble upon the castle, and they're doing that weird, disturbing, blood-curdling chant that they do. This bullshit right here. To this day, that is very, very unsettling, dude. I can't with that. Like, why? And it's the 30s. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but it just makes it more creepier. Just knowing that chant was written back when, Hitler was alive. Somehow, I don't know, but just knowing that makes it even more disturbing somehow. And finally, this is one that I can't even if I tried, I can't put a comedic spin on it. This is Boys in the Hood. And on my notes, I have it spelled boys with a Z and with an apostrophe. So, very authentic in my notes that I applaud myself on. But, oh, Jesus Christ, this scene is so horrifying that I didn't even bother. Like, I'm aware of it. And every single scene I've talked about today, I've seen it just to see if it holds up. This is a scene that I can't even watch. Like, it's too horrifying. It's legitimately horrifying. And this might be for me the prime example of just a horror scene in a non-horror film. And it's the scene where Ricky, he gets shot, which, that sucks. But for me, it's always been the scene where Ice Cube and Cuba Gooding Jr., they take his body and they bring him back to his mom's house for some goofy reason. And in something that no mother should ever have to experience, she walks in and sees her son's dead body right on her couch. And listen, shout outs to the performances, shout outs to the actresses. It's such a heartbreakingly horrifying scene that happens. It's just John Singleton, the director, does a genius job at just setting the camera like there's not that many cuts. He just puts the camera and just lets the actresses work. And you just see a fucking heartbreaking scene of just a mom just discovering her son's dead body and just, I mean, what can I say? Just reacting, I guess. I can't go into detail about what she does. She reacts. And many of you probably know the scene that I'm talking about. And that's a scene that to this day just messes with me in ways that very, very few horror films can. Oh man, what a disturbing scene. I recommend you guys take a look at it. Go see it for yourself and tell me I'm wrong. And audience participation, why don't you DM me some scenes that you think are scenes from non-horror movies that are absolutely gut-wrenchingly horrifying. Whether it was something from your childhood or just, a scene in general that's very out of place for a non-horror film. Let me know. And with that out of the way, I would say it's about that time, children. It's about that time that I leave you. And before I do, let me just once again thank you for joining me today on the DualShock Graveyard Podcast. Definitely, if you haven't already, add me, fuckers. Add me on social media. Add me on my personal Twitter page and my personal Instagram page. Both of them are ambient_Jules. And don't worry. I did not forget. I know what you want. You want those $10 in PlayStation Store credits. I'll tell you what. DM me on either Twitter or Instagram the answer to the following Very, very difficult question. 5 plus 2. May the fastest person win. All right, guys, that's the show. Okay, bye. And remember, kids, DualShock is a product of Sony.